And we should be live on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube,
and we are
Twitch.
waiting for the volume to come on, but we are officially live. All right, live, and volume will be on shortly. And we are live on all platforms and ready to go. Welcome back to Deal Flow Live. This is the show where we look at businesses that are listed for sale online, and we talk about what it would look like to buy them. What kind of person does this appeal to? Who would buy it? Is it priced appropriately? What kind of negotiation would you do? And we just talk through it. Today we got a special guest on, but I'm your host, Brody Vincent.
I'm your other host, Ryan Santo.
And our guest today is actually one of our classmates, Ryan and I's classmates from our MBA program. We graduated last year. Cruz, thank you so much for being on.
Yo, what's up, guys?
Tell the people who you are and why you're coming in.
Cruz Madero, business analyst, accountant, MBA. I'm here because Brody and Ryan are my guys.
Hey, let's go.
We're looking to buy some fun. What are some fun buys to do?
Yeah.
What is our retirement plan? What is our life dream buy? That's what we're looking for. We're tired of these money guys.
Yeah, and we want to do a fun episode because Cruz is kind of just looking into this like for the first time as something that, you know, could be something in the future at some point. He had this like kind of this idea where he was like, okay, like what if I bought a business one day as like a retirement plan, something to just make me money into my retirement, something fun to own. And so we wanted to look into just businesses that are, you know, enjoyable, fun, a little bit more recreational. And so we're going to look at some stuff in the entertainment area today, entertainment and recreation. Yep. Ryan needs his levels up a little bit. No. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Yep. Other Ryan levels today.
So
we got some. This is in California. I'm not sure if we want to swap states, but
for those of you who are tuning in, I'm going to show it up here. We're looking at. Is it only in California that it's showing?
It's just showing California, but I can change that if you'd like.
Just click that X, and then it should change to everything.
So the industry is entertainment.
Yes.
Industry, yeah, I think entertainment and recreation. So we usually, Cruz, we like to pick out something that shows, like that big number that it shows is the asking price for the business.
Mm-hmm.
And then the number that it shows under that, the cash flow. We only really look at ones that show both of those because you have to kind of look at both to understand like the full price of the business. So let's find something that's like.
Do you have like more of a validity to posters that have the cash flow in there as well?
Yeah, it's more like a validity of the listing because you can understand like how much the business is actually profiting every year. And for you to like pay for a business, you kind of want to like figure out how much it's profiting every year so that you know like how quickly your investment would get paid back. Like if you spent $250, for example, on this one up here, or let's say you spent $2.45 million on this apparel, pro tackle, outdoor sports retail business up there, and it's profiting $225,000 in cash flow a year. You know that it's going to take probably like actually more than 10 years to pay that back. So that's kind of a lot.
Yeah.
So that's a really expensive business.
It's interesting too because you want to know. So, for example, here.
Click into that.
Yeah, let's do this one then. I like it.
Because sometimes you're stuck with how the person built the business, right? So like even with this one, it would take a lot of time to pay back, but I'm sure high luxury. So there you go. There goes. You're probably buying their stock, right? Like what they have to rent out. Why is real estate involved?
That's a really good question. So a lot of times they do bundle the real estate into the business. Can you scroll up a little bit so we can show it? So a lot of times they do bundle the real estate into the business. And in this case, we actually see like most of the asking price is coming from the real estate.
Yep.
The interesting thing is if you get an SBA loan for a business, it's kind of like buying a house. You can like put down like 10% and spread out the rest of it over like for ones with real estate, usually like 20 to 30 years. So it does help you like pay it back a little bit easier. But a lot of times like it's a little bit much to buy the real estate with the business, and a lot of times like it doesn't necessarily, like you don't necessarily need to own it to run the business.
Yeah, because they're banking on, hey, this shop is in a high traffic area. You're gonna make sales because of that, and whatever the case is. I wonder.
Oh, this is cool. They don't.
This is a
always have
public
these.
teaser, yeah. So good on the broker for throwing this out there. Normally you don't see something like this, but this is a really good one because they even give revenue numbers for. I mean, we'll get 2024 solid at some point when their taxes are done, but that's interesting. There's a decent dip between 2023 and 2024, so I'd be curious to see what happened. Well, I guess maybe we can chalk that up to hurricane season for that because it was pretty rough on the Gulf Coast. But
It's also
what do you
why
think,
they're
Cruz?
selling.
Yeah,
That's
this-
what I'm thinking.
This was
Yeah.
a rough year.
Did I say where it's located?
Gulf Coast,
Oh,
Florida's
yeah.
Gulf Coast. Yeah, buddy, that insurance premium is gnarly.
Yep. So I mean, honestly, my first opinion on this business, I think it's way overpriced. It's like it's a good business with good profit margins and everything, but it's way overpriced for what it is.
It could be misrepresented. So I don't know if cost of sales includes fixed costs of the real estate they have. So cool. Your cost of sales is only 45%. But when you add the fixed costs of the real estate you're trying to give us, this prime location, probably closer to 80 or 90%.
Mm-hmm.
And now, when you say fixed cost, Cruz, just kind of give us an overview of what you mean by a fixed cost for anybody who's listening.
So I believe if this is how they created this, cost of sales should be all the direct costs it took to make that sale. How they're calculating it, if they're including the fixed costs of rent and stuff, then that's very good. I doubt it. It's usually
They're probably not because they own the real estate.
yeah. So it's probably something about what we bought in order to make this sale, whether it's fees, stuff like that, and maybe they're not even counting the rental itself because that's could be an asset.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a nice, easy way of misrepresenting. They're only showing you the numbers that are variable. Very easy way to maybe misrepresent how good the business is.
Agreed.
Total OPEX to revenue. So there goes your operating. Yeah. So there you go. 20% is your fix. So, okay. So it's not terrible.
But I think the really big point that you made in there is they're probably not factoring in the rent. And if you didn't buy the real estate with this business, you probably would have to pay a rent to the person.
Yeah.
That's usually
they're trying to
how
get
it
rid of
goes.
their property
Mhm.
as well.
Mhm.
They're not just trying to sell you an established business. Which if you're going into stuff like this, I don't know if there's like platforms for that. Like I've heard about Just Key rental businesses. They post them. You can do it online, versus like a brick and mortar. But yeah,
There are some specific platforms where they're only for online businesses.
but I wonder. I mean, I'm sure there's some value to the.
Oh, by the way, yeah, if you want to switch to
That's yep. Okay, yeah.
So we're looking at basically like what is this? It's not a jet ski rental business.
No, it's a high-end kayaking and beach stuff.
Kayaking,
It's that-
canoes, just general
Outdoorsy
outdoor
stuff.
Yeah, altogether, this is not really one I would go after. It's also not doing enough in cash flow every year for you to be able to really like hire someone to run it. So it says 0 employees. So you're going to be taking this over as a full-time job.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, this guy's running it himself. Yeah, for sure.
So if we're trying to find a business for Cruz to buy for his retirement,
No,
he does not want to retire and immediately take over a full-time job.
the reason for selling is
Retirement.
Yep.
which is I think a easy way of saying a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because that could be the main reason, but it's like I'm done with this shit is another way of saying retirement.
Exactly.
So yeah, this isn't.
This guy is actually 30 years old and he's retiring. He just wants to retire from the business.
Well, if you look at it that way, that's not bad.
Yeah.
I'll put in 30 more years. Jeez.
So let's look at another one.
Yeah.
That one, not one that I would encourage you to buy.
They put
That is-
franchises on here too.
They do.
Okay.
We usually
avoid
skip
those.
them though,
Yeah.
because a lot of times they're listed as if they already have profit, but then you get to the listing of it, and it's just like you could make all of this money,
Yeah.
and it's not really like actually.
I mean, this one says it average 198K profit with the asterisk, meaning that that's not what you're making.
Yeah.
Also, anything located in Rochester, New York, I would sooner eat glass than have to go back there. What a just an awful part of New York. Like, just truly one of the worst that I've ever been to. I saw multiple houses that just didn't have doors.
Right.
Like, the doors were just taken or broken. It was like, wow,
Yeah.
Rochester.
I'm surprised at how many of these don't list the cash flow. There's one that's actually pretty good. A nightclub.
Oh
You
yeah.
thinking about a nightclub?
If I start dealing drugs anytime soon, I definitely will. But
I mean,
It's
that would
in
be-
Miami.
That would be really good vertical integration, I think.
yeah.
There's the $100,000 word, vertical integration.
Rent 100,000 a month.
Whoa, buddy. So they're not giving us anything.
Wow. So yeah, there's not a lot.
So they
a lot
are
of-
selling drugs.
This is clearly.
It's 2 years old or 2.5 years
Yeah.
old.
Interesting.
Wow.
So this is a nightclub, ladies and gentlemen, asking $3 million to buy it. It is
Wow.
doing $1 million a year in cash flow. If that's true, this is actually a decent price for it. But they don't really give us much to go off of.
They
don't
give
list
us the business
revenue.
website.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah.
Open it up.
Okay.
That looks like that actually looks like it's the broker's website.
Okay.
It's his name. Yeah.
Okay.
That's not.
Oh, I was scared there for a second.
Because usually on the business listing, like you can't actually see what the business is.
Yeah,
It's just
because
like
if they don't give you profits either, that's scary. Because I don't know, I could be wrong. Cash flow could be $1 million, but it could take 950,000 to keep it running.
Well, the cash flow that it's saying, like traditionally, if they're reporting it right, is supposed to be like after profits. It's supposed,
After profit.
that's supposed to be like what the owner is able to take home.
But again, this is a nightclub, so
Yeah, there's a chance that the books are not by the book.
cooked.
Yeah, they might be.
Rent is $100,000 per month, and like we said, we're terrified of round numbers on this show because that mean just
This is all round numbers.
yeah,
We always
100,000
see that
per
as
month is
suspicious.
terrifying.
Because you don't want to round up or down and stuff like this. You want to just give the real numbers.
That's your
Yeah.
cash flow in 10 months. Holy God.
Yeah, it makes you think like the people that buy without, like, I think you need like 3 pieces, like just looking at it right now, like asking price, cash flow, and then like somewhat of a look into the margins. Because if you're missing one of those, how are you going to spend $3 million?
No.
You're probably the wrong person. The people that don't care, don't blink at $3 million are probably the people buying it, maybe. But
I don't know anyone who's not blinking
like
at $3 million.
Because I know like our company, like you do things to help cash flow. Like we're gonna increase the time on our payables. We're gonna shorten the time on our receivables, and that helps our cash flow. But it doesn't change how we profit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So we made the same revenue one year, and we weren't giving raises because of cash flow. Where we made the same revenue the next year, but we were giving raises because we did some things to help the cash flow. So I feel like the previous one, even if it was a little misleading on the margins, maybe, I don't know.
At least you know what
they
you're
give
looking
you
at.
margins, cash flow, and asking price. Because somebody could get misled where it's like, yeah, I'm getting $1 million a month, but it takes X amount just to run this shit. I
Mhm.
start to get a little nervous or whatever.
Yeah, this one just doesn't have enough information for us to go off of. Scroll back up real quick. So
That's it.
To kind of sum this back up, the key things that it's missing that we would want to see, like we would want to see what the revenue is, just to understand like
There you go.
how much is this business making. Like we see that it's making $1 million in cash flow, but what if it's like 20 million a year in revenue and it's like a tiny little margin? That's kind of a sketchy business to run, especially with that high of rent. so we want to understand stuff like that, and we want to know what the EBITDA is ideally. I mean, with cash flow and EBITDA, you kind of want to be able to compare them. And again, to sum up, like Ryan's point that he made, $100,000 a month in rent on something making $1 million a year is scary.
Yeah. Oh, that's an annual cash flow.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's annual cash
yeah.
flow.
Yep.
Like I get it, like rent should be in your calculations, but I'm just thinking you have like a couple bad months on 100K like thing, you're eating anything that you made.
Or like it doesn't look like the real estate's included if whoever owns the real estate just decided to increase rent by a little bit right after you take ownership of this, all of a sudden you're cooked.
And
you're literally cooked.
Here's the other thing with fun purchases, right? For this episode. When you compare something like this or like a bar or something, I'm assuming on a platform like this, you're buying the brand and they're putting a value on the brand versus like if you were looking for like, I don't know if Zillow or some of these rent like real estate sites, just somebody's selling the property of the bar, not the business of the bar. There's some, you got to weigh that out too. Like versus where are some 20,000 square feet vacancies in an area that I like and what's the cost of that instead of paying maybe 50% more or $1 million more because of Wynwood nightclub brand. Sometimes that's part of it for fun purchases, right? Because other purchases, you need their clientele, you need all of these things. But for fun ones, it's like, how much do I care about the brand versus how much can I make the brand?
And what are you planning to do with it? Like, maybe you're a nightclub enthusiast, and so for you, this is something where you just want to buy it so you can hang out at the nightclub,
right,
every day of retirement.
And I don't want to I don't want to do anything.
Yeah,
I want to be a part of what's already going on.
And to Cruz's point, I think in, looking at these and really breaking down, even just the title's important. There's a lot of Wynwood branded things for sale. So that makes you wonder if A, they're just a new company who's like, we built some stuff we don't want, or which would be a very strange thing to do, or B, if there's some sort of liquidation happening of Wynwood brand assets that they need to get off their hands, not just posting online hoping to get rid of it because
Hannah says hi, by the way, Cruz. Hannah says hi, by the way.
Hannah, congratulations on your
I don't know why
new title. I saw that.
So that's a very good point to remember.
One thing I will call out on this business, we don't have to look back at it, but one thing we didn't talk about that is kind of interesting is it did say seller financing available, kind of in the top corner. So that is one pro of this. That means you don't have to come up with all $3 million of the asking price up front. You can kind of like use the business to pay for itself a little bit. So that always makes it easier to buy businesses like that, like especially if they're offering a lot of it in seller financing. But it's still, they just don't list enough for me to be comfortable with it.
Can I select the next one? Because I do have a West Peoria, Illinois. We're going back to Cruz's roots. He may be an Iowa boy, but Illinois is close enough.
Yeah, we could drink pop. We could drink pop over there.
But I love Peoria because number one, they have one. Well, I mean, this is West Peoria, but Peoria, Illinois, actually famous for the Tulip Festival and their large Dutch community. Which, if you haven't gone, it is actually worth the trip out.
We got a big problem coming on the financials of this one.
Oh, the fact they've only listed asking price, cash flow, and then gross revenue is also the cash flow.
Yeah, the fact that
this is some Midwest bookkeeping. Okay,
they have 0% costs.
They put a YouTube video with it.
Yeah, they got a YouTube video with it. Good times at Cartville.
So they show what the business
they do have 4 employees. They have a lot of equipment to maintain. And
based on the financials they're showing, those employees are working for free, which is really nice.
Yeah.
This feels so family. Like you're getting so much in this, and it's like the track, the carts, the bumper boats, all this stuff.
Should we just change the description of this show to just we're roasting businesses?
No, because I like Guy Fieri over here in his flame shirt. I don't think there's anything wrong with him. I just also like they get a house, a 4-bed, 3-bath home, could be a residence or rental or become a pizzeria.
What?
You know how naturally things move. That goes from a house to a rental to a pizzeria. It's really the natural way of progression in life. A 3-bed, 1-bath apartment. Yeah, this is a listing that I think is just a plot of land that they built something on that they're not too sure what it is, but they just don't want it anymore. And I'm shocked they aren't just selling the real estate on its own, because they could probably get close to the asking price on 2 homes alone.
Yeah.
What was, scroll down? Does it say the owner's been living there for 20 years?
Oh, also, hello, Neil Acquisitions.
Hey, Neil, welcome back.
We're very happy to have you.
Neil. Yeah.
This is our friend Cruz.
Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, lead associate has worked on site for 20 years, is willing to join a new ownership team if needed.
That's huge.
This is like some guys living on the property that you're gonna have to deal with.
You know what though?
This sounds like, honestly, if you want to just have a crazy retirement,
Owner is retiring.
this one,
Yeah.
You're getting your retirement home, your second home, I guess, in one go, as well as your business.
Yeah.
The lead associate is very appealing to me, because having a senior person staying on staff with you makes that transition a lot easier. And you can really sweeten the deal by, if the person seems to be a really good, 20 years are probably pretty good vibe of the person. You can offer an equity stake to keep them on and give them more of a thing as you grow it, because also you're going to want to own, develop this more. So that to me is a really big sticking point of that price.
Yeah. I wonder too, Brody, you've done some of these before. They're private companies. How they do their books, is that a big, get ready to sell means do your books? Is that a thing?
Yeah, there's so many times
these books look off, right? Like,
these books are
numbers.
These books are non-existent.
Yeah, or show me what you mean by this, because
I feel like if I said show me your books, they would send me a screenshot of their Stripe account.
Right.
This is clearly listed by. There's no broker. This is an owner listing. This is
to your question. The biggest thing you should be careful of if you're looking into buying one of these small businesses is a lot of times, and you'll have to switch the share this tab instead for that. A lot of times their accounting is not going to be done very well, because they're just kind of figuring it out.
Yeah.
And they've never really they just have to do their taxes. All they do is really kind of bring stuff together for taxes. So a lot of times some of the work that we're doing is we're trying to bridge that gap of here's what we actually need to understand everything. And kind of helping people get to that point. In your business, all of the books are probably done pretty well. You guys are a big operation. You've got a finance department and all this stuff going on. But for a lot of these small businesses, they're just kind of flying by the seat of their pants.
And you need to put the work in to show the value or not show the value.
Exactly.
I think of my buddy Zach, where he's got an awesome business, but he would have, he's not thinking about selling, but if he was thinking about selling, he would definitely need to put some work into his books to show how good of a business it is, because his tax return shows he don't make no money.
And most businesses
you got to use a pseudonym with those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We mean Brett.
Zach is the pseudonym.
Yeah.
There is no Zach.
As far as the government's concerned.
Whoever's IRS agent is listening, nothing to see here.
Right. I'm just talking.
But no, in a legitimate way, for real though, a lot of businesses do show a lot lower profit than they actually are making. Because they might have a lot of stuff that's kind of lifestyle expenses that are legitimate write-offs, but a future owner wouldn't have to do those. They might be writing off a personal vehicle that they do use for business that they don't actually have to, but it's kind of a gray area. You know what I mean? And so when a company goes to sell, a lot of times they'll add those expenses back in above the profit, kind of back into the expenses, or below the expenses rather, so that they can show a better picture of it. They do add backs of it. So this one seems like everything is an add back, because it's showing revenue and cash flow are the same, which is definitely not possible.
That's part of the problem, is trying to figure out is somebody dumping this business versus really ready to give it up kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. That's where it could get sketchy with this too. That's the thing to talk about, is if you're buying a business, it really is running because of all the employees that are running it, right? So the thing to be careful with one like this would be if the owner is leaving, if they're retiring, is everyone going to leave after that? because if that happens, then the business doesn't make money.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Ryan. Sorry.
No, I'm just scrolling up.
I was gonna say some of these things. I think so with the fun buys, because this I think is interesting when you look at fun buys on this site, because it's very different than some of the industries you guys have looked at where you do need to buy the business. I feel like with the fun buys, like entertainment, bars, clubs, it might be more important to figure out how somebody did it successfully than buying the successful business.
Yeah,
These ones,
because
like,
you're probably going to be like involved in it.
yeah, especially as entertainment. Like if you buy a podcast, you want to make sure they're still doing it. Otherwise, you might lose it. Like you're buying it for the brand instead of figuring out what they did to do it. It's not the same thing.
Yeah,
it's not. it's not
necessarily going to work for you.
Yeah, but for like bars and stuff, it's like, hey, here's what we do. This is the process, and it's like you might be able to save $1 million or so if you don't buy the brand.
Hey, our buddy Neo on YouTube watching. How you doing, Neo? He says hello, Cruz, and he spelt it right. Nice job,
Neo. We're happy to have you here.
Yeah, CRUISC.
Hop in with any questions you got too. Let us know what you got.
Well, yeah, drop a fun buy that you're thinking of.
Yeah.
For anyone listening, tuning in just now, we are looking for businesses that are just fun ones to buy. They don't have to necessarily be.
I mean, you said a bar, so let's try to find something a bit like.
So that's one thing though that's interesting is how many bars are not on this platform.
I mean, if we did restaurants,
I think they would be in a different category because we did do one. We did like an industry meltdown episode where we were just roasting all of them.
Yeah,
I was giving.
Restaurants.
I was talking what
island and resort, one cottage nets more than 2 million. What is that one? Look at the price versus cash flow.
That's a 50%er right there. That's a grainy picture from Google Images.
Is that an oyster? Oh, okay.
Is this just a timeshare ad?
This just feels like a scam.
Here? It does. Yeah. Also, the cash flow versus what they're asking is like, if it was legit, it would be like one of the best deals ever.
This is amazing. I just want everybody to read this one so that we can all just let this soak in. Package deal. To see pictures, tap the arrow on the picture. No SBA loans. We are not financing. ... Sorry. We cannot email our private information unless we have met with you, but we are happy to talk with you on the phone and answer your questions. I trust them. I mean, yeah, you got to be very.
He doesn't trust them.
Also, the sellers have to be willing to take an SBA loan.
For this, it depends how you're doing it. So if you're keeping the seller on in the business, then they do have to be willing to be on the SBA loan usually. So they have to be like a personal guarantor a lot of times, depending on how much they're going to own. But if they're selling the business outright, then they don't have to be on the loan.
They're trying to sell an entire resort. They're claiming that they owned an island, and it's a social media that produces the business to their island. They have one high business season, and they make all their income in that one season. And the season, but the season is 365 days a year. Okay, well that's okay.
A lot of conflicting.
Yeah, we are in the middle of the ocean with no other business on our island. The 10,000 visitors we get a day have no other choice but to cross our island's road. That I feel like this might not be a legitimate thing to pursue.
Maybe we want to look.
Also, it's listed by Mr. K.
Cottage building manufacturer.
This just seems really sketchy.
I don't know. I mean, no SBA. I mean, maybe the no SBA loans because no SBA would ever consider this to be legitimate.
That's true.
Then the SBA would be like, "Oh, we've been looking for these."
It takes two to tango, and the SBA is not going to tango with this one.
They just like, wow, what? They just listed a bunch of cities at the bottom.
This is not a usual listing.
No, this is incredible.
I think we're going to need to find a different one.
I mean, I want to give them $6 million.
If you gave them $6 million, you would never see them again or the business.
No, that just like that Nigerian prince, it's on its way. It just got lost in the wire. There's a showroom. We got another family entertainment center. Do we want to switch to a bar?
Yeah,
let's try a bar.
All right, industries.
Right when you got to a monster truck business for 10 million.
Don't do this to me. You know I'll go back for that one. We're talking about fun businesses. Sea Cruise, there's plenty of bars and tea shops.
Lots of bars, yeah.
Hooters,
Fire sale. Oh, I don't want to see that on a restaurant.
empty parking lot.
I don't want to see your fire sailing your restaurant. That's a bad sign.
That means it's not doing well.
All right, we got sandwiches. Oh, juice bars.
Bar.
Oh,
Bar, restaurant, lottery.
the crumble for sale.
Oh man,
We
did a whole like deep dive on Crumble and how like they're headed for trouble with like their whole model.
Really?
Basically, what they're doing is they're squeezing the franchisees more and more every year. So we're looking at like how much Crumble makes every year, like corporate Crumble, but then how much the average franchisee makes. And the stores we're making like a little bit more each year, but the franchisees were making less.
Shout out
So
to
getting harder and harder to like be an owner of one.
It was like Online MBA or something on YouTube. Shout out to that guy for doing those crazy deep dives that we did. We ate crumble cookie on our 24-hour live stream, which is coming back soon. Don't you guys forget it. I don't know, maybe.
Not for that long.
But okay, well we'll do like a sleepover one, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll call it that.
Like next year.
Ryan fell asleep on the stream too.
Bro, I'd been up for almost 22 hours by the time we started.
Yeah. That's a lot.
But yeah, it was fascinating because what they were doing is they were taking money on they required them to purchase through a supplier. But every time they purchased through the supplier, they got a percentage of the supplier's cut back to Crumble Corporate. So they were basically double dipping into their suppliers and to their franchisees. And thankfully, they figured that out quicker than anybody else did because they're about to sell, I think, for $2 billion.
Who, Crumble?
Yeah, a private equity deal is coming in for them for $2 billion. They announced it the other day.
Really?
Yeah.
Until the private equity firm sees that modern day MBA
Or
video.
they say, good, we can squeeze a bit more out of this.
Yeah.
That's probably what it actually is. They probably think they could just squeeze more than that out of it in the next few years.
If you know you can make your money back in a year or two, you can just dump it. Who cares?
So
Isn't that similar? Like McDonald's model is kind of weird. Like it's like they have to own the property for you to be a franchisee, and then
I don't know if you have to own it to be for Crumble, but what they do is they just increase the fees a lot every year, like the franchise, like the royalties that you have to pay.
Yeah.
I think McDonald's does a little bit of that, but Crumble just said like we're taking the ship down.
No, but like what was it with McDonald's we saw where they were like they could be the way they franchise, they could be seen as a real estate company because they make sure they own they have to own the property for you to have its franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So
Could you pay rent to them too?
You are their franchisee and they are your landlord.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of deal. But it's McDonald's.
Yeah, I was about to say like my dream franchises to own are like a Taco Bell, a McDonald's.
Chick-fil-A
I couldn't do Chick-fil-A because Chick-fil-A requires you to be actively working in the business.
You have to do that for a while, right?
Yeah, I don't want to. Or a Wawa.
Will they accept my 1 year in senior year of high school for Chick-fil-A?
With them, maybe they might.
Probably. And you probably can't have like a big gap either.
But there's no shame in franchise. I know I had a couple friends that I thought they had old money and but literally their parents built their fortune off of franchises and stuff. So
no, there's certain franchises I would love to be an owner of.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's really good ones, honestly.
What is
Here's something interesting.
Moneymaker must see.
This one has pretty low profit margins, but is a good deal.
Gross revenue is pretty substantial.
There's a lot of information on this one. That one's not bad.
There's a lot of employees. Yeah, let's dive in on this.
That's good because they have a kitchen. So it's a dinner, lunch, and brunch on the weekends. So a lot of alcohol they can get served. Large bar scene after dinner, very popular for sports. Okay, so they're really leveraging all the key pieces of a restaurant there. They're not like really niched down, it looks like, where you'd say like fine dining or something. They're also in Chicago, so you have a really robust city, a good sports backing. So if you have a sports style thing where you have TVs, get a lot of people in paying.
They're offering seller financing too, if you saw at the top there. They also have more like equipment and property than the asking price of the business, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, not more than, but a significant portion of the asking price is actually covered just by the PP&E.
Yeah, their facilities are pretty
Which-
substantial.
That makes sense for a restaurant or a bar
Mhm.
if you're on prime real estate or whatever. What is FF&E at the top?
Kind of like the
Furnishing,
same
fixtures,
thing.
and
And
something
equipment.
else.
What is
Yeah.
it?
Furnishings, fixings, and equipment.
So like the
That's their
stoves,
fixed-
the freezers, the tables,
Their assets, pretty much.
essentially, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they'll put that instead of property, plant, and equipment.
Inventory and FF&E. Okay.
So they're basically saying everything they got's worth about $500,000, but obviously ovens and freezers
What do we say
depreciate
for inventory?
$50K.
So yeah, they're like $550K that you would buy immediately for like the $695, and it also makes $400K a year. If all that's true, it's not actually that bad of a deal.
No, I mean I think their multiples correct with this because obviously in restaurants, I heard somebody said this to me one time. They're like, "There's a great way for people to go broke, and it's buying horses and buying restaurants."
Yeah.
And I think to an extent, if you don't manage it properly because the margins can be so brutal.
Yep.
The inventory is a little weird because obviously if you're a bar, I would assume you'd have, my experience I guess the upper end of fine dining, our inventory just on the liquor alone was pushing $200K.
Wow.
And I'm surprised. I mean, even with like
I think this
beer
is
and
just a lot
stuff,
smaller.
maybe it's got to be. But 6,000 square foot first floor dining room, 234 occupancy with 200 person seating, 78 seat outdoor sidewalk cafe, 2,500 square foot basement for the back of the house operations, which is a substantial area for everything. I'm surprised. Maybe they just took inventory on a slow day, but like I would expect more inventory, especially on your liquor side.
Yeah. I mean, and that's where this site is like the perfect place for questions. Like, right? Like, okay, now I contact this person
Mhm.
with a list of questions. Because on one hand, if you ask a bunch of like supply chain questions and they happen to be like, no, that's why this business is this business, because we're so efficient with our supply chain, it would argue that inventory number a little more. Like what if the processes they have allows to keep a lower inventory, which for restaurants would be really good. More likely that they just understated something like what Ryan's thinking or whatever, but it could be a pro. Like if you ask questions like, hey, annual, gross revenue, cash flow, like everything looks good. What's some of your like strategic advantages? It would be really good to hear how they procure and stuff to be one of their tops, because then you go, that justifies your inventory being so low a little bit, My
other concern here is, sorry, Chris.
Go.
The seller's reason for selling is he has other restaurants and is rolling out one of his other concepts, which is, and I guess it's, what they cut off his needs capital for it. That's good. I mean, he's a serial entrepreneur, restaurateur. That's a good sign. But having worked for people who have separate LLCs for their concepts and their main branch, you don't just drop a concept if it's doing well. Like you just maintain it. And if he's hands off, he's not hands on. Essentially, I'm going to say hands off. And they're admitting it could be more efficient with owner, operator, buyer. There's something about this where he either lost his love for the side of the business or he's just tired of dealing with the issues in the business, which at 45 employees, that's a lot of personalities you're managing and a lot of managers to manage those personalities. So, I mean, it can be pretty tough mentally. So I'd be interested to dig more into the reasoning for selling. Although the issue it's not the issue, but the concern we always have is reaching out to a broker like this. They're going to say, show us the money before we even speak to you. And I think, Brody, you're the one who came up with a pretty good opening to kind of counter that so that you can actually get through to some questions to see if you even want to pursue that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're coming up against that question, like the financing question, it just depends on the situation. Like you want to know like what the fundamentals of the business are to see if it aligns with the financing that you have lined up. So I think you would just say something along the lines of like, hey, I have financing lined up with the bank, but I need to be able to actually look at the financials of the business to see if they'll check off on it.
What is like the proof? Do they always ask for proof of financing or whatever? Because I can see the sellers being drained from talking to so many people as well.
That does happen.
But then it's like yeah, it's almost like you need to find a way to get a big chunk, and then you could have a lot more conversations than you probably would anyways.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times they do just ask you to send over like proof of finances, but and you can do that. A lot of times people will do that. But you know, sometimes like with a business like this, if there's just incomplete information, like you can't even really provide that if you're doing any kind of bank financing without having like some more details.
I do think the moral of the story right now with this episode is you don't buy a business to retire.
Yeah, we figured out in trying to do that, that it's just not the right move.
There's a bunch of people retiring from buying businesses. But you don't buy a business to retire.
As Neo points out, and as he and Grant have gone back and forth on, yes, it could very well be a mafia finance situation. That is always possible, especially in the beautiful, cold city of Chicago, Illinois. Also, I like that they didn't put the rent up top where rent could be put, but they hit it down here. Gross rent, $252,000 a year or $21,000 a month. So that is not publicly displayed info where it usually is. So good thing that you scrolled all the way to the bottom. Yeah, I mean, you don't buy. I guess, if you're just a passionate person, you're like, I don't want to have a lot of free time, which I do think you have to
just want to be there all the time.
You have to enjoy restaurant life, and if you've never done it, it can be like a big old cold water bath your first time in there, and those employees will eat you alive if they sense weakness.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because like there's a couple of restaurants in my neighborhood, and one of them was so packed all the time, and they shut down, and this new one opened up across the street, and it's not packed at all. And I'd be interested. My wife's parents were talking about it, and they were just like, I don't understand how this place shut down. This place is about to shut down because they can't keep the business. But I kind of talked to them about, the structure of their loan and how they're renting that property is huge. It determines how much sales you need to stay afloat. So I wonder if you buy this business and the property, you inherit their, like what they have as like their loan on the property.
Yeah.
Unless they own it.
Unless they paid it off.
Well, I think in this case, they don't own the land. They're still renting it. So you're inheriting that rent. So that's
something to be careful of.
Yeah.
Could be good. You could inherit something you couldn't have got. And that's why you're paying for the business, or you're inheriting something maybe you could have gotten done better if you just worried about securing a loan for the property, then worry about starting a restaurant, then where if you did it all the right from step one, you don't need as many sales to keep your restaurant afloat. Interesting.
This just feels like something a larger corporation could come in if the real estate's right, snag it up, throw in a franchise and call it a day, or an existing group in the city would buy if it was really good. Coming in and trying to restart something from scratch that has like, a cafe, a bar, a sports thing, a brunch. That's a lot of different avenues that you're kind of pulling yourself towards. So I don't know if I'd want to do that.
I also think of a lot of these people like that would be interested in a listing like this are already building in, I'm going to pay my guy to manage it. Like I'm buying it. I got my guy that is good with restaurants, and I'm kind of building in his salary into the cost, hoping I could lay some people off that'll offset it. But I'm assuming that's a way to go about it too, because it's like you said, I don't know if anybody's got $3 million burning in their pocket, or 10% of that, like $300,000 burning in their pocket just to run a business. Like I don't know. Mainly, like they're thinking of,
they want to make that money back. Yeah.
How do I not be how do I be hands off on this?
And to your point, like if the $400,000 in cash flow that they're listing there, if that doesn't include someone to run the business, you kind of have to look at it as if like, if you have to pay someone $100,000 a year to run it full time, you kind of have to look at it as $300,000 in cash flow and not 400, because you're going to have to hire that person and increase the costs to run it. And that's the way it would actually be looked at. Like if you were doing projections for a loan or something, you would have to project that in. And unless you were planning on taking the full, operating yourself, but then you would still have to factor in what you're going to pay yourself. and you probably don't want to do that.
Here's
You
a
don't wanna
fun
have that
idea.
pressure.
If you're not looking to buy a business and you're working for a small company, look at a lot of listings in your industry and you could kind of see your worth in these listings as well. Like if I'm
Yeah, tell me what you mean by that.
like if I'm a district manager or regional manager for, whatever this company is. What was it? Why? No, this is a different one, right?
This is a bar.
This is just a nondescript no company.
They're not
restaurant
saying
bar.
anything,
No.
right? So it's okay. I don't need to know my company, but if I see like 6 listings of a similar company like mine, and I see similar breakdowns like this, to your point, there's buyers that are factoring maybe 100,000 cash flow on to this listing. That's what you mean to the person that runs this company today. So it is something to kind of look at. Now, if you're a waiter, you're screwed. Like, good luck negotiating. But if you're the manager and you're keeping shit afloat, and you hear that you got sold, or you kind of see this is how a lot of these businesses are running, you do kind of see where you add some value if the owner is very hands off, which I know most of those businesses are like that, right?
Mhm.
There's some manager that's like, I'm keeping this shit going. I'm answering calls. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I would love for that person to see similar businesses like theirs and be like, no way, this is what they're kind of doing,
Yeah, they might look and see like, oh, this restaurant bar has 45 employees. I know that the one I work at has 50. So
Yep.
we're a similar size. So they might be doing similar numbers to us. And I'm the one that's running it full time. So I should probably get a raise.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if that's what it's bringing in and that's what it's expected to do,
Yep.
maybe I should ask for a raise.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Or if another thing to consider is if you're like working in a business full time, and you're working in a small business, you could even buy the business that you're working in.
Yeah.
Because you might know the business really well.
Yeah.
So there's people, like an example is like this manufacturing, like this welding business that we looked at earlier or later last year. The guy was retiring and he had people that had been working with him for like 20, 30 years in the business. And so he was looking at selling, but then he talked to his employees and they were like, actually, we'll buy it. Like
Yeah.
a few of them got together and they wanted to like bring together the funds to put a down payment down and get a loan for it.
That's a little different. That's a little more realistic too. Because
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, I can the 3 of us or whatever, we can put 300 grand down to get, secure that loan, and we're already doing this and now we're owners for it.
All of a sudden we're doing the same job or like slightly adjusted job and making a lot more money for it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think if you're working for a smaller business, for sure. Like where I'm at, definitely wouldn't. But like, yeah, anywhere. What's the highest?
And your
listing
business is
it?
on that precipice of not being really a small business anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a little different there.
Yeah, though that would probably be. I don't know what they do. What do they usually? They're like 2x or 3x their revenue or something, depending.
It's
That would be
usually
a big
more
one.
based on the profit, but it kind of like the multiple goes up as the profit goes up too. So like
Got it.
a business doing like 200,000 a year in profit might be at the most like a 2x, 3x multiple on profit of that
Mhm.
profit. But one that's doing like 2 million might be like a 5 times on profit, or maybe even like a little bit more or less.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes up as it goes. For like the business that you work at, like if they were selling, like they're probably doing millions and millions a year, maybe tens of millions, depending on the size. They might be higher, like even like if they're doing tens of millions, maybe even like a 10x multiple or something.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes up as it goes.
Man, our owners are in their 70s and they have not sold yet, bro. And
That's
I respect it. They have kids and stuff, but I just wonder.
They're probably trying to figure out like, are the kids going to take it over? Like, can they take it over, or does it make more sense to sell?
But when you think of this, like small scope, like how you can build a business up in 5 years, sell for 10x, 5x, whatever, and it's like put your life in, and maybe you can make a couple $100 million. That would be freaking. But I think the people that get there don't think about the couple $100 million. They're thinking about the brand, like, is way more to them than that or whatever. But Yeah.
the brand,
No.
the impact.
I think that's an interesting thing to go out for the amount of people that work at some smaller businesses in Orlando or other places or whatever. Most businesses are not that different. Once you're in the same, when you're in a similar industry, similar areas, those things, there's variations for sure, but most businesses, you kind of have to do what you have to do. And if you're good at something or not, you'll see it. But it'd be interesting. Like if you found 3 other restaurants, bars, whatever for sale in Chicago, I bet you get a feel for the business model or whatever the case is in that area. If I was a manager or something for a restaurant, I'd use that to my benefit. But that's also why you hear these managers, these district managers for restaurants or whatever, they do make good money. They are making 6 figures and stuff. They got to go through hell. But that right there shows you why they are making 6 figures, because some guy bought it and I don't want to do it.
And he's like, I do not want to touch this.
I don't want to sell this because I want to retire. You're going to let me retire and you're taking off my cash flow.
Exactly.
The
name of the game is like, can I buy it for a realistic price where I can like collect a good amount of cash flow and still pay someone to run it?
Yeah.
While the business pays for itself, whether that's through like a loan or some investors or
because for the fun stuff, if you really want to do something, you're gonna if you want to start a restaurant, it's because you want to start a restaurant. And if you want to work in it and stuff, it's because you want to start your restaurant, not this restaurant, so it would almost have to be a hands-off thing. I couldn't imagine spending that much money on somebody else's thing, kind of like a podcast. You spend a bunch of money on somebody else's podcast.
That wouldn't make a lot of sense.
Can you run this for me and make it just profitable? I don't want to put as much work as I had to do for my own podcast. I see it kind of like the same way.
There's a lot of businesses that just don't make a lot of sense to buy. Restaurants are usually one of those.
Yeah.
Unless you're just doing it for fun.
But no, don't cut to me. No. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, the only thing they could do is, I don't know, with restaurants, especially this one, there's probably a waiting list or a line to get into a spot. Like if you're in a prime location, like if you think of any restaurant right around us that's in a prime location, I'm sure there's people begging to be in that location as well. So I don't know if you buy the business, is that the benefit you just purchased as well? You know what I mean? Like to jump ahead of the 2 people, 3 people, 5 people that were trying to do it from scratch. It's another thing. So those are probably the only cons of buying or pros of buying a restaurant. Is it has those things. Outside of that,
otherwise it's such a high failure rate kind of business.
You're
just so likely not to make your money back or to lose a bunch in the process, or both.
Yeah,
you might not make your money back and lose extra money just trying to keep it afloat, because it's got small profit margins, a lot of people to pay. If rent goes up a little bit, that's what happens with a lot of these businesses in Orlando that are like a lot of these restaurants that are going out of businesses. Rent just goes up a lot overnight, and then they're like, oh, well, we didn't have the profit margins for that, and they're just cooked.
What did they say was rent for this one?
$22,000 a month, I believe.
22
or 21,000 a month. $252K a year.
Yeah. So if it went up a decent bit, all of a sudden they lose a lot of profit margin.
Well, there goes how expensive it is to run a restaurant, because it's only $250K a year for rent, but it's $3.6 million costs.
It's 45 people.
Yeah,
that's a lot of people.
Yeah. But remember,
people.
Yeah, but the food costs are going to be your main one, liquor costs, and then of course when you have servers, you're paying them what a server rate, which is going to be substantially less, but you're still going with the tips rate.
How hard is it to secure a liquor license?
It depends on the state to
They're
state.
limited. Very difficult.
So in Florida, there's a lot of them available. I don't think there is a cap on Florida. I know in New Jersey, there are only X amount given out.
So it's super big in Jersey.
A guy that we knew who ran a liquor store in a very small little plaza, a Wegmans, which is a large food store, came in, bought up a literal farm and put a new shopping center and a massive store there. and they bought his liquor license from him and all of his inventory. And basically within a week, he just poof disappeared. Sold the license for probably millions upon millions, and nobody saw him again because he was like, I've made everything I need to make in my life. So if you had just the license alone, could be worth the price of admission.
That's
depending on the spot. A lot of times in Florida, they could be like the liquor license could be worth like $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 sometimes.
So I mean, that's the big question with this one, right? And that's the next thing too, is like, don't look into any industry you're not familiar with.
100%.
Oh my gosh, is there just general knowledge you have about restaurants like prompted 5-6 questions for me here? So I can't imagine just any industry if you don't have those same questions. It's probably because you don't know enough in the industry, like a similar amount of questions. So that's very important.
I mean, I think it's just like, you know, with other stuff, it's like if you have somebody who has done it, you go in with them as a partner to make sure it goes well. And if you're lucky enough to have a dedicated staff, you say, okay, where can I feasibly give some raises and give some bonuses to people for staying on and let this thing run like it is and try to just improve the quality of life and the quality of the restaurant, try to fix it up. I mean, realistically, I think that's the best way of going about any business buy.
Yep. For sure. For sure.
So as a parting note here, I think Cruz made a huge point there that I don't want to get lost in the flow of things, which is if you're looking into buying any business, you should know the industry that you're getting into, or you should be bringing someone in that knows the industry you're getting into. There's going to be all these little nuances of just questions that you don't know to ask that, like, if you were to ask them and get the wrong answer, could make it not a good deal to do in general. And if you don't know to ask those and you make the deal anyway, you could be upside down. I've seen a lot of people end up buying businesses that get themselves into a bad situation because they didn't do enough due diligence. They didn't know the industry well enough, or maybe they were getting into something for the first time.
Yep.
Final thoughts, gentlemen?
If you're looking to retire, don't buy a business.
Invest in one, don't buy it.
Yeah.
That's the real answer. Yeah.
Yeah, these fun investments aren't so fun.
Ryan, any other parting thoughts?
No, it's been great to have Cruz on, giving a lot of different perspective, coming from, you know, maybe not knowing as much about the business world, but having a very deep knowledge of accounting and kind of how to properly dig into a financial statement, even just on a, you know, giving a more cursory level thing where we don't normally dive into that. So it's great having him, and I think we'll try to get you on more often.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let's do it. All right. Well, this has been Deal Flow Live, ladies and gentlemen. Again, this has been the show where we break down business deals. We talk about buying and selling. And we do this every Tuesday night, right around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're looking to follow the show or tune in, bring any questions, find Ryan or I at Ryan Santo or Brody Vincent on LinkedIn. Shoot us a message. I'm on a bunch of other platforms as well, but that's the best place to find me. Shoot me a message. Let me know what you want to see talked about on the show. Or if you want to be on the show and break down some business deals with us, let us know. And until then, we'll see you on the next one.
Most importantly, where can we find Cruz?
Oh, and
nowhere.
Yes.
Nowhere. You can find me on LinkedIn, Cruz Madero MBA.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Find him on
Put
LinkedIn.
Those 3 letters.
Let Cruz know what you want to hear him talk about next time he comes on.
Yes, let me know.
Hey, Neo said it was an awesome show, so I guess that seals it. We're gonna have Cruz back on.
Neo.
That's right.
Oh man.
All right.
Neo, find Cruz and let him know what you want him to talk about on the next one.
Yes, sir.
And until then, we'll see you next time.
Peace.
See ya.